when you look at writing, for instance, being able to take a student's writing, and maybe they're, a fourth grader, and we're really truly, I shouldn't say fourth grade because we're more focused on high school level, to be honest. But taking an essay and then running it through AI, what could I do to make this essay better? And looking at your version versus the AI version, and then doing another edit, not stopping with AI, but okay, is it the vocabulary that they enhanced through AI? Is it the sentence structure? What is it about the artificial intelligence that was able to enhance your writing so that you're having writing conferences with students and they're learning to use it to make their writing better, not to do the writing for them.
So, hi guys, I'm Avinash Bansal, your host for TomoClub Podcast series. Today we have Dr. Toni Jones. She's a superintendent at Greenwich Public School, and we're going to discuss the topic of AI, which is evolving at an unprecedented rate right now. For many school districts, AI is a complex mix of promise and practical challenges. But today, I'm pretty excited of what kind of conversation Dr. Toni will bring to the table. Greenwich Public School is a district in Connecticut, and it serves over 8,500 students. It's a high performer in the state. And I read you guys have recently begun piloting some AI tools and exploring its potential from both teachers and student point of view. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Jones. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. In Greenwich Public Schools, we have been working on this probably for about the last a year and a half. And the way that we really got started as a school district was, first of all, forming a committee of teachers from across all levels just to come together and, first of all, go out and explore what was going on with artificial intelligence in some of the more innovative places across the country. And we found there were several universities, Harvard, Brown University, had some, fantastic policies already in place to help guide what we knew we needed to put together first, which was kind of what are the parameters around which we're going to use AI for staff and AI for students. What levels were we really discussing? Where do we want it to start? So we spent a year putting the staff policy together first. I'm going to say policy, but ours is a regulation in Connecticut, which is put together by administration and staff on how we're going to use it. And then the policy committee of the board did their work and actually created an artificial intelligence policy. And that's more around, ethical use, making sure that we're, meeting the letter of the law, and especially in Connecticut, because we have a data privacy law in Connecticut that's very strict. And for instance, if a AI platform has not signed the Connecticut data privacy, then you can't use the platform. So right. That alone is different in Connecticut than it is in some other states. And that was our jumping off point, was, first of all, what do we want to do with it? How are we going to roll it out? And what platform are we going to use?
No, I know. There's a lot to learn on that front. But before we dive into AI, I would love to know if you can share a bit about your journey in education and how it got started.
Absolutely. I started obviously as a teacher in special education, and then I also have general education. I did a dual major coming out of college, graduated from University of Nevada, Reno, other coast on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Then from there went to Australia, and that's where I actually first got into administration, and I was there for about 6 years. From there, I ended up moving back to Oklahoma, which is where I had been born and raised. And we stayed there for several years. And I was a teacher, elementary principal, middle school principal, district level administrator. And then I accepted a position in the state of Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. And that was my first superintendency. That was back in 2011. And I ended up moving to Connecticut in 2016. And that's where I am today. This is my 7th year leading in Greenwich. So again, my 7th year being here, and lots of memories here getting through COVID and everything else. And not only technology changes in the last 7 years.
Wow. No, honestly, thank you for your service. It's been quite an exposure from different cities and different countries, which definitely must be very helpful. But I would love to know what got you into education in the first place. Like, what was the reason that you want to work in education?
For me personally, I come from a family of educators. My mom was a high school math teacher. I had a brother who was a high school math teacher. My aunt and my uncle were elementary teachers. So I grew up around it, but I was also just the sort of, student when I was younger that was teaching the other children on the block, the little ones, and we would come together, read stories. And it was just a dream that I had to be a teacher. And I always felt that way. So I think it just happened naturally for me. And there's just nothing more joyful than being around little ones and young people. They keep you young in many, many ways. And it's a great profession.
No, I love to hear that. I always ask people about that initial motivation. But my second question is, which gets a mixed bag of answers, is that reason still valid after so many years? Do you still feel that joy and passion?
Absolutely. And I will say the role that I'm in now is very different. When you first go into administration, if you love teaching, that's one of the biggest challenges is most administrators, you're no longer teaching. It's a totally different role. So being a school superintendent, obviously in a district this size, I don't teach anymore. But I know that decisions that I'm making and the support that I'm giving all of our teachers is critically important. And I think it holds true today as much, as it did. And, the best example I have is summer school just wrapped up for us last week. Remember, East Coast starts a little bit later than the rest of the country. And I was able to go and, read in a preschool classroom. And I remember coming home that afternoon and telling my husband, when I retire, I'm going to go teach little ones again, because it's just the best thing on the planet to be around, little ones and young people. And I love that part of my job.
No, I can definitely feel that. I have a 1.5-year-old baby, and it has given a different dimension to my own personality in so many ways. So yeah, I can totally feel that and whenever he learns small things, it's a wonderful day in that context. So yeah, I can't wait for him to get bigger and I start teaching him more things about the world. There's so much to teach and so much to give. So yeah, it's just one kid. In your case, it has been thousands of kids over the years. So I can't imagine the impact or the fulfilling feeling that you must be feeling right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this, and as you said, I've been in many different districts. I've been in districts where there's a lot of poverty. I've been in high performing districts. And one thing that you learn is, children and our students, they're people, and they all really need the basic premise of kind of love and support, and to know that we're going to help them grow and learn. And it doesn't really matter what kind of community it is. That's the critical aspect of it.
No, I agree. So now diving into AI topic, I know you're definitely not a pessimist for sure, but do you consider yourself as an optimist or a realistic when you talk about AI?
Boy, am I an I am an optimist, but I also, I'm cautious in that I think that we need to be really careful with artificial intelligence and from a school district standpoint and how we educate our young people about artificial intelligence, how appropriate use. And, a lot of schools want to talk more about cheating or, being able to create a paper. I'm not as worried about that because I think we're going to get more and more comfortable with utilizing AI to produce content. what I worry about is the scary aspect. And I'll give you an example. We have a brand new report card that we are launching for elementary school. And so my curriculum team had me do a little intro video, why we're having this new report card and what's going to be on it. And so obviously, we have multilingual families. And so we want to be able to translate, our documents and videos. So they took one of the apps and, ran that clip through. And when you watch the video, it's me.
Yeah.
It's me speaking in Spanish. But what really is a little scary, it's like your mouth is moving appropriately for the words. It's not just a translation. And it really shows you have no idea when you're watching online what is real and what is not, and how easy it really is to emulate somebody else. And I think we have to be very careful in education that we are educating our students about the dangers of AI and why you wouldn't do that to somebody, thinking something's funny, because you both think these are young people that sometimes now you make one mistake online, it follows you when you're 30 and 40 years old. It's a very different world now for young people. And you just want them to understand, like, you can't go and just use somebody's voice and their likeness and make them say whatever you want. And why that is so inappropriate and really illegal to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a lot of importance of having that critical thinking in place when you're right now on internet in the real world, because you need to be so cautious about what's fake and what's real. The line is very blurry, and it's getting so good at it that even the best eye cannot identify it. So yeah. Right. Absolutely on that front. I was reading about your district strategic plan, that you guys have put it out on internet, and I could see there are ambitious targets for student achievements. I saw that 90% of the fourth graders should be reading at a grade level and other targets. So how is AI playing a practical role for you guys in achieving these targets?
I would say that AI is, from a literacy standpoint or a math standpoint, I'm going to say it's minimal, because I feel like the student achievement that we see, and just to be clear, a lot of people see Greenwich as a very wealthy community. However, we have Title I schools, and we have almost 30% of our community that is, on free and reduced, between 25 and 30% on any given year. So we have Title I schools. We have a large, EL population. I really feel like a lot of foundational work that we're doing has more to do with the science of reading and making sure that we have a really solid program. I think where AI comes in to really help is when we have a student, and let's say we have a seventh grader that is reading on a third grade level, may have a learning disability, and we're still working to close the achievement gap and meet their IEP goals. But when they're sitting in, a social studies class, if the text is written at a seventh grade level, and then they really can't access it unless they either have an audio version where they're listening, but then they're not reading, and you want them to practice their reading skills. So being able to take a passage or a page out of the text, run that through AI, and have that same content generated at a third grade reading level so they can read and access the content, that's where it's making a difference. And we have a fantastic chief of special education and student supports here in Greenwich, Dr. Stacy Hollygenthaler, and she has been presenting at different workshops across the country on this very issue. And there's been so much interest. She was invited to, she'll be in Oklahoma coming up in, I think it's November. And then she'll also be presenting here in Connecticut again, because there's interest in how do you modify and adjust assignments to better meet the needs of our students.
No, that's a good value proposition. I would like to know more. I think this opens up my discussion on personalized learning. I think if a student can, do this particular part, what other applications you guys are looking at in terms of personalizing learning?
When you look at writing, for instance, being able to take a student's writing, and maybe they're, a fourth grader, and we're really truly, I shouldn't say fourth grade because we're more focused on high school level, to be honest. But taking an essay and then running it through AI, what could I do to make this essay better? And looking at your version versus the AI version, and then doing another edit, not stopping with AI, but okay, is it the vocabulary that they enhanced through AI? Is it the sentence structure? What is it about the artificial intelligence that was able to enhance your writing so that you're having writing conferences with students and they're learning to use it to make their writing better, not to do the writing for them. And I think there's a lot of opportunity with that. I even look at it from a work product standpoint. And one of my senior cabinet members, we needed a job description. So we were like, okay, let's put it through AI, because we put in exactly the skills that we needed, and 20 seconds later, we had a beautiful job description that then we took and could edit, make unique for Greenwich. And that was done in, a couple of minutes. And we could have spent a couple of hours, if you went back 5 years ago, putting a job description together. So there's just so many uses, I think, for artificial intelligence. And it's kind of limitless, and it just keeps changing and growing.
No, absolutely. I think I totally agree with the fact that students will definitely students are using AI, but the first thing is to get staff using it, staff workload reducing, because then they will have more time for student interactions. And I think that's the way to go. Also, I read in 2025, your 6 educators were honored awards for excellence and innovation. So tell me more about it. How did they win those awards?
Are you talking about the distinguished teachers?
Yeah.
So distinguished teacher, they get nominated by students, parents. It could be anybody in the community. And they fill out big nomination packets. There are quite a few that get nominated. They then go through a vetting process to limit that down to 6. And then from those 6 educators, they're out of those 6, they're all honored. There is one teacher of the year that then represents the district at the state level. And that has a whole nother layer where they do an essay on, key educational questions. Like one question, maybe, what do you see as the biggest challenge you believe will be the biggest challenge in education in the next 5 years? And then after they do their essay submissions, we go out and do classroom visits and watch them teach. And then we name that teacher as a distinguished teacher for the district that then goes on to the state of Connecticut.
Wow. No, that's a very extensive process. So that just makes me think, do they also have any specific KPIs or indicators for use of AI in their day-to-day life? Is there anything you defined in that adoption point of view from the teachers?
We haven't built in AI where you must use it. I would say we're really approaching artificial intelligence from, first of all, getting teachers to feel comfortable, because some teachers, again, when I wanted to form the committee the first year, it was easy to get people to volunteer. There are people that love this topic, but there are a lot of teachers that are afraid of it, and they're not going to be comfortable with students using it if they don't understand it and understand what and how it's going to be used in the classroom. And so again, we're really focused right now on teacher use, how it can enhance your job in the classroom, how can it make teaching more effective, and use it in a really great way. The students are using it, whether we approve it, let them anyway. And I had a discussion with some of our middle schoolers at the end of last year, as particularly one young man who did his capstone end of the year project over AI. And he was talking about the dangers of AI, which was interesting to be a middle schooler. I thought he would just be saying how great it was.
Yeah.
And he interviewed like an engineer who was using it in his job. He said he uses it every day. He was talking about appropriate use, how, especially in middle school, some students will generate an essay, through AI, but the essay gets generated with vocabulary words that, number one, they can't spell and they would never use. Like, they don't really know what it's saying. And it was interesting hearing a student's point of view who was being forward thinking about the complexities of AI.
No, that's very interesting. If a student themselves are putting those points out, I think
Yeah.
nobody else can teach them if they're themselves, talking about it. That's the most beautiful thing. Um, why I'm asking about the teacher adoption as a mandate or as a indicator, because it's about the threat part which you just brought it. How do you manage that narrative, so that teachers see this technology as a tool to enhance their expertise and not as a threat to their professional craft? So how do you manage that narrative?
Well, I think that you have to do that through your professional learning as a community. And during, the time that you do have to bring teachers together, they learn best from one another. So, getting one teacher to be able to model how they're using it to enhance instruction, they actually will listen to a colleague and learn from colleagues, I think, better than they do sometimes just going off for a one-off workshop. It needs to be embedded in what you're doing in your conversations, in real teaching and planning, not just going and listening to a speaker talk about it. It has to be part of what you're doing on a daily basis, and really looking at sharing of ideas, and techniques, and what's going to enhance your instruction.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Uh, Again, I'm trying to build a narrative here while I'm talking to you. In terms of my questioning, it's trying to hint towards the angle of the instructional quality. Like, why I'm bringing it up, because as a student myself, why I like a subject depends a lot on the teacher. Why I'm into some particular project is because of the mentor that I had. So a lot of schools are trying to work on creating some kind of consistency in instructional material, um, so that some students doesn't get disheartened to work in math or work in English because they don't like the teacher. So I'm just trying to understand that a lot of that can be a threatful position as well, of trying to bring instructional consistency. And a lot of schools are trying to start it with the substitutes or the paraprofessionals, not the permanent teachers. So have you guys thought about any kind of structuring in instructional material consistency?
I think we're already doing that, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily tied to AI. So, but if you separate that out, that is exactly what we've done. If you go in our 11 schools, you will see that the curriculum is consistent, that, you're going to see the basic premise of what they're teaching, whether that's math, whether that's literacy. You could move from school to school and you would be fine. And the instructional quality is there. We are actually working right now on a regulation that is around that exact aspect for secondary, is consistency. And, and that can get into everything from grading, how one teacher grades, what are the weights that they're utilizing, percentage of tests, percentage of, daily work. All of those kind of components can create more consistency. But when you talk about instructional quality and the teachers that you really love, I think it's one reason why AI is never going to replace our profession, because it is the human quality of teaching that draw you to want to take that teacher's course. And you can teach people a lot of things, but having a dynamic personality, for instance, is really difficult to learn. Doesn't mean you can't grow as a person and get more animated and learn to be a more engaging teacher. But there are qualities that are just human,
Right.
that make some teachers connect with their students in ways that other people may struggle with.
No, I agree with you. So I'll give you a very similar example in a different sector. So there's a lot of conversation about AI companion. Students are using it, which are literally like a virtual girlfriend or boyfriend for the students, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between that is those AI bots, they're available to you 24/7. They are more like your yes man or yes woman, and they will always be pleasing to you. But in a real case scenario, you are unaware what kind of reaction you may get on some content or some conversation. That level of curiosity and unpredictability actually makes you human, right? So I think the teacher student relationship is also based on a lot of those uncertainties of how a student actually approaches and how the teacher is going to react. And if there is a very consistency, which may happen through an AI tutor in the future, there is no reason to have a bond. They are like a service provider and you are like a service taker. So I think the relationship, which is very emotional, can become a much more commoditized in a way. So I totally agree, and I think that's one of the angle which a lot of educators should feel, that is thus main strength, their individuality. How are they have their own flavor, their own essence, uh, still relevant when their content, when their assessments, all can be replaced. But it's that particular individuality which will always be important.
Yeah, and I think even from the social emotional kind of learning aspect as an educator, AI doesn't, look at the student walking in the classroom and be able to pick up on, that a student perhaps had a bad morning just by the way they entered the classroom today versus the way they, generally come sprinting in the room full of energy. Like AI can't do that. And I think it's not human. And when you talk about AI and the companion aspect of like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, there's nothing real about that. From a humanistic side, and that to me is a little scary. That a companion or a friend is not actually a person. That you're chatting with and developing a friendship with. It's software. It's a platform. It's not a person.
No, absolutely. Can you tell me more about that? I think you have this AVID program expansion in your school.
AVID.
Yeah, AVID, where you are preparing elementary school staff to promote college and career readiness. If you can tell me more about that part, I think that was very interesting to read.
Well, I will tell you, I think we have one of the best AVID programs in the country. And again, we presented nationally on AVID just last year. And I have to say, our education foundation really planted the seed and continues to support it. We started kind of in the middle school, and we have a magnet school that's an AVID magnet school. And AVID is really it helps with everything from organizational skills. It's really aimed more at students who are going to be first generation going to college that really need a lot of support, because when they're home at the dinner table and they're talking about college applications, there may not be anybody at the table that has ever filled out a college application. And AVID is really about supporting the students. When you get to our high school, again, we have a very robust AVID program that continues. And those students actually go on to college, and we still support them. That we have a scholarship program through the Alliance. They are connected to a mentor that they can meet with all the way through college. Just last week, we had 30 odd students who were doing summer workshops about finance. They were talking about drugs and alcohol on a college campus. And half of that group are students getting ready to start in the next couple of weeks. And then the other half were students who came back to do the workshops in the summer who have just completed their first year of college. And we followed them all the way through. And now we're looking at going all the way back down to the K-5, because we did not have AVID in K-5. So those educators are all doing training and highly engaged at Hamilton Avenue School this summer, so that we can start looking at that from a more of a K-12 lens. But again, just making such a huge difference in the lives of young people to be able to have support, to be the first one, and many of them are the first one in their family to go to college. And they need support. They need to understand the finance aspect of it. How do you study? How do you organize? What is it that they need support with? If they're going to be a musician and they're going to go to take really high quality, orchestra at a major university, do they have the instrument that they need? Or do we need to go help them and find a donor, somebody to help us make sure that they are prepared We've prepared them all the way through K-12. Now, how are we going to help you get through college? And that's why I say it's one of the best in the country. There are very few programs that follow students through college and make sure that they are mentored and supported and they don't become a college dropout because it just gets so difficult.
No, I agree. I think college staff, they don't have that bandwidth or that kind of training to actually mentor kids in that capacity. So I think that's huge if you guys are still following through. But my question was although on the lines of bringing it down to elementary school staff. How is that playing out? How is that? What's the rationale behind it? Because those students, those staff are training those students who are in K to 5. How does career or college readiness make sense in an elementary setup?
Well, it really, the sooner that you get students, it doesn't matter whether it's world language, whether it's playing an instrument, if it's developing your skill set for organizational task. The sooner we get our students, the more it becomes habit. And the more it becomes habit and how you organize your binder, how you're, putting one subject in structuring one subject versus another subject. And if we start that when children are 9 and 10 years old, by the time they're in middle school, they're not starting from zero. They've already developed a very, very strong skill set. And I think you'll hear from a lot of parents that will say, that is one of the challenges now with some young people. They're used to, instant technology, everything changes quickly. Sometimes just the organizational aspect for our students is challenging. And you have, hard resources and you have technology generated. How do you keep all of that in order and so that you can find things when you need them? And that's part of teaching that in elementary and then progressing all the way through the system so that you're not learning that skill when you're in middle school or high school. You've already been developing it.
Oh, no, that's a very, very, very relevant point. I think early on feels like better. So I was also checking out the budget constraint part, right? Even at a large school district, as you said, there are a lot of places where you are spending money, from reduced lunches to transportation to multiple aspects to infrastructure. So how is that working out from the teacher capacity point of view? Because a lot of school districts are talking about, not enough resources for teachers, and every teacher feels that burnout, bigger class sizes, less time for individual student support. So are you guys also facing those kind of challenges right now?
I think every school district in the country is facing those challenges. And, it seems like after COVID, which was really difficult on educators, a lot of them were really worn out. It was hard. It was a very, very difficult, really year and a half. And, for us, we were only closed a very small bit and we opened in September of 20 and got our kids back in school. But with that also came, a lot of fear for teachers. They didn't know what they didn't know. It was hard to teach. In Connecticut, you had to wear a mask. And that went on for quite some time. And it was just, it was difficult. And I think we haven't quite got over that for some of our teachers that have been teaching for a long time. They're tired. We try to make sure in Greenwich that we do keep our caseloads down. If you're a special education teacher, we try to make sure that our class sizes are reasonable, that we're not bumping up to great big classes. And I think we've made a commitment to do that. We've made a commitment to make sure teachers have plan time and ample plan time. So we're doing everything that we can in listening to our teachers. And then if there is a problem, let's try to solve it in the best way possible, working together.
No, I definitely do. I think AI can play a big role in that, in reducing teachers' burnout by taking up the administrative task and, improving the efficiency aspect. So I think a huge role AI can play there for sure. Can you tell me what AI tools you're currently piloting in your school district right now?
Well, right now we have 2 in the fall that we are trying to roll out consistently, and that's Khan Amigo, which is a branch of Khan Academy. Right now, we're trying to get it through the attorney to be able to sign off for our data privacy in Connecticut. So we're working on that. We're hoping that before school starts, that'll get done. We also are utilizing School AI. And then, of course, we have like Hey Jen, which is what I was talking about before, about taking the video and using it for translations to multiple languages. So those are a couple of probably, of course, Chat GPT, everybody knows, like that was kind of one of the first people started playing with. And then a lot of our teachers, have individual, we give them all a device, but some of them aren't on district platform. They're actually, they'll go out and find what they like to work with and utilize that. The big thing is making sure they stick to the regulation and you don't put student data, you don't, you use it appropriately. And when we have our back to school meeting in the next 2 weeks, we'll be going through that just to remind everybody what you can and can't do with artificial intelligence, because it is really important that we have appropriate use.
No, 100%. But I think I love that aspect that you allow the teachers to still go and try out different products, because in my opinion, right now, sticking to one tool may be counterproductive than anything, because the entire ecosystem is evolving so quickly that the tools are getting obsolete within months. And right now, it's important to find what works for you the best, whether it's designing, whether it is coding, whether it is English writing or strategy or even accounting. I think every aspect of our operation planning, scheduling, transportations, there's so many things that needs to be optimized, can be optimized using AI. And there are specific tools for that. So I think even if you guys are using Chat GPT or let's say Gemini, literally it works how you guys build up your history around it, how it knows you better. So I think I appreciate that you guys have let the teachers choose for themselves. And of course, the student data privacy has to be maintained anyhow, because these open LLMs will be using that data to train themselves. So I love that fact. And you said that a lot of teachers are on the fence. So do you have any numbers of what kind of like teachers are using it? Did you do any AI survey in your school district?
I'm saying AI what? Sorry.
Any AI survey, any readiness survey in your school district?
We do an annual survey every year, but we didn't ask like how many are actually using it right now, or, have you used it in your classroom? We've been more focused on sharing, here's what it is, and then running the staff through, especially on the secondary side, that professional learning. So we know 100% of our staff at that level are having experiences with it. As far as integrating it into the classroom, I wouldn't have that data point yet, because again, we've been going slow to go fast, and we're trying to be very methodical, I think, in how we utilize AI and how it's rolled out in the district, because it some people it does make them nervous.
Oh, 100%, 100%. No, but there are a lot of applications coming in. Like I was talking to another school leader, and they mentioned that how they're using AI for grant writing, because grant writer, if you hire someone, you're going to be paying, let's say, 50 to 100K per annum, and how you can use AI tools to quickly apply to multiple grants. First of all, identify them, find your eligibility, prepare your documents accordingly. So I think there's a great use case over there. People are using AI for a lot of counseling, the career counseling part, helping kids identify what works best for them in terms of subjects they want to take in majors, and what kind of college they want to apply to, or what kind of college preparation checklist that they need to have. I think, there are numerous applications coming in, and it's a very exciting time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And, I was in London this last April. We took a little vacation, and, I started looking at where do I want to go? How do I want to get around London? And I was like, why am I just trying to look this up on my phone? I need to just run it through an app and plan the trip. I know these are certain things I want to do. And it was just amazing. It was like, okay. A few seconds later, I had a whole itinerary, and I tweaked it a little bit, but it was just so easy, because I was trying to map out distance from one place to the next, and you tell it that's what you want it to do, and then boom, it's done. I mean, there's a lot of potential, so many different areas.
No, absolutely. Last thing that I want to know you is about the AI privacy part. That actually leverage the power of AI, the sensitive information about the student has to go and run through those algorithms. So how are you guys are thinking about the privacy aspect? How can teachers share the critical student information on AI platforms if they can?
Yeah, in Connecticut, you really not sensitive student information. You're not going to be able to share that. And you shouldn't be in Connecticut uploading student information. And we're really driving that home. And, probably a good example would be you can't put, a student's name in and generate their IEP for special education that's not, that you haven't actually created their goals, because it should be based on everything we know about the student. Again, it comes back to that humanistic aspect.
Right.
And so again, it's very strong in Connecticut because we do have law specifically around data privacy.
So I'll give you an idea. So I have a very close advisor and mentor. He's a superintendent in a district in Mississippi, and he is like a insane AI enthusiast. So they have literally set up a private server in the school district, and they have created a custom LLM on top of that private server, and because of that, none of the data that they're passing through it is going on the internet, and because of that, they're able to run sensitive information as well through AI. Because he was telling me that if they want to do a route optimization for the buses, they need to tell the students where they live, right, in terms of exact pinpoint location. So they're able to run that. The budget part, they're able to run a lot of budget discussions through AI. So I think the next step or the next frontier in AI, I personally believe, is how the schools will be able to share that information comfortably, confidently with with the complete control and laws aligning with it. Because to unleash the full potential of it, we need to share, like, in a way. So I think that's something you guys should definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think if I was in a private school, I would probably have a different opinion than in a public school. But for me, I definitely am not at the point that I would put student information through AI, because everything that AI does in enhancing its kind of brain is coming from the data that you input. So I would not have the confidence in a school district, for me, of our size, that somebody either wouldn't misuse or just a cybersecurity mistake. We train in cybersecurity every year as well. And the amount of cyber attacks that are happening, to school districts, across the country, you just have to be so careful. And so I'm probably more cautious. And again, being careful about how we use AI. I personally get to see where all that stuff, like if I want to go and generate, a document or something of that nature, for me, that's not difficult. But and a lot of the software that you buy now is using AI within the software, like your bus software. That I'm very comfortable with, because that is again, it's approved software. It's not. We've always had student data in our system. We have to, as a school, we upload to the state. But I don't trust a lot of third-party sort of apps to be able to have student information. I'm not there, and I'm not sure I'll see it in my career, but I've been doing this for over 30 years. So, maybe in the next decade, it'll change a lot. I can't even imagine.
No, I absolutely. And by the way, just to correct, that superintendent is also of a public school district, not a private school. So there are things are changing rapidly. So we did cover up a lot of aspects around the hesitation of AI, to the concept of AI, to the different programs that you're running, and if they are aligned with AI policy or not. So is there anything that we haven't discussed that you want to share about?
No, I just think it's very exciting. We are all very, very lucky to be, watching it change so rapidly and so fast. And I think the potential really is limitless to help us have more resources and tools to make us that much more effective in teaching, our students. So, and that's what it's all about. We're here for the students, and anything we can do that's going to make their learning reach higher levels of student achievement, then that's worth it.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much for giving us time today, Dr. Jones. It has been fantastic to know more about Greenwich School District, and I'm pretty sure whatever you shared today will definitely be helpful to a lot of school leaders out there. Any piece of advice that you have for them?
For educators that are moving in this direction,
Yeah.
I think just follow your passion, and we need people to choose this profession, and there is no better profession on the planet. It really is. It's a service industry, and you really get to give a lot, and you get a lot back. And come to Connecticut. We pay teachers some of the best salaries in the country, and that's across the entire state. And we will embrace you.
Lovely. I think that's a great pitch, and I'm pretty sure people would love to move there. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.